Hi, I'm Rich Frankel, author of OneWorldEconomics.com. That's 360 pages long, so I'm presenting some of my findings in a series of short YouTube posts. In this talk, we make the case for universal basic income in the United States. As we've seen in earlier videos, the U.S. has become a very rich country through continuing productivity gains, first in agriculture and later in manufacturing and services. In 1820, it took 80% of the population to grow food. By 2000, only 1% of the population was directly involved in agriculture. The same thing happened a bit later in manufacturing, with industrialization, and more recently with automation. Less than 10% of workers are now employed in manufacturing, but we produce more manufactured goods than ever in terms of dollars. Capitalist market economics drives productivity increases. The enormous increases in productivity we've seen in the United States and other Western countries since the 1800s has been driven by capitalist market economics. Market economics is now almost universal in the world because it's so productive. Unfortunately, productivity increases reduce the need for many types of labor and drive down wages. This has been true in many blue-collar jobs. Computers and now AI also reduce demand for labor in many white-collar jobs. Income inequality is rising in the United States. Historically, income inequality was high in the Gilded Age. As you can see in the 1930s, the top 10% took home half of national income, while the bottom 50% had 15% of national income. After the war, income inequality shrank thanks to the New Deal. The middle class expanded, and the share of income going to the bottom 50% increased. After Reagan, right here, income inequality started rising again and is now back up to Gilded Age levels, pre-tax. After tax is shown in the smaller chart. Income transfers, primarily Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, have somewhat improved income distribution. Extreme inequality is a natural feature of market economics. Drastic income and wealth inequality is the historic norm. Capitalist market economics tends to be very good at growing productivity, but market forces drive income and wealth concentration. Governments and unions can set the market terms for labor and through income transfers foster greater equality. FDR's New Deal and earlier reforms under Teddy Roosevelt limited work hours, set minimum pay standards, initiated high marginal income taxes, and set up income transfer programs such as Social Security. After these reforms, business boomed and America's middle class grew. The New Deal reforms, unions, and taxes on the wealthy have been steadily attacked under Reagan and following. Project 2025 aims to continue that attack. Is inequality inevitable? A prior video in this playlist asks, is inequality inevitable? The answer is no. While markets drive inequality, the New Deal showed that income redistribution both stimulates business growth and reduces inequality. Income redistribution does not interfere with the capitalist market economics and decision-making. We already have massive income redistribution in Social Security and Medicare. Are these bad for the economy? We're talking about lessening inequality, not eliminating it. This slide shows the relationship between the capitalist market economy, the green box, and taxes and government income redistribution, the blue box. We should note that most of the federal budget is not spending money, but rather redistributing it. As you can see, companies only interact directly with the government through the corporate income taxes. Otherwise, they deal only with markets. They get financing from private sources, sell stuff on the goods market, and hire workers through the labor market. Corporate profits are distributed to shareholders. The level of taxation of shareholders and workers does not directly affect corporate decision-making. As you can see, some of the arrows go in both directions. In particular, tax revenue flows both to and from workers. This is income redistribution. Since income tax revenue tends to flow from those with more income to those with less income, This actually increases the demand for goods and services and so drives increased demand, which is good for business. Increasing transfers, as was done by the New Deal, increases economic activity. I should mention that one tax that directly affects companies is the corporate income tax. I support a low corporate income tax, although in the US, companies only pay a fraction of the official rate seen here. To further clarify why redistribution of income doesn't negatively affect business, let's do a thought experiment. The stock of General Motors is widely held and its profits flow through to many shareholders. The operation of General Motors does not depend on how many shareholders there are. If three wealthy men owned all the stock of General Motors and all its profits flowed through to them, taxing that income would have no effect on the operation of General Motors. If instead everyone in the United States had General Motors stock, the company would make the same decisions, but its profits would be more widely distributed. We can embrace both a capitalist market economy as the proven engine of growth and income transfers to reduce income and wealth inequality. As we saw in the video on US taxes and spending, the federal government mostly transfers money. Transfers, including Social Security and Medicare, are shown here in orange. As you can see, they've grown enormously as a part of the federal budget. Defense spending is the blue area at the bottom. All other government spending is the tiny purple and green areas at the top. The light blue area is interest on the enormous national debt. Social Security is a large part of the orange area. It is paid for by a tax that almost entirely falls on the middle class and poor, since contributions are capped. Transfers spur spending in the economy and support low-income households, such as retirees. This chart shows how household incomes have fared since Reagan's time in 1980. The chart on the left shows pre-tax incomes, the one on the right after tax and transfer income. The lowest fifth of households make on average $49,000 after taxes and transfers. They would only make $23,000 without them. A lot of these households are elderly on Social Security. As you can see, the top quintile has done very well in after tax as well as before tax. In fact, it's up more after tax because of tax reductions. What is a universal basic income? A universal basic income is just a fancy term for an income transfer. Every adult in the United States would get, say, $1,000 a month. I see this as limited to citizens. This size transfer would reduce poverty without discouraging work. A UBI, Universal Basic Income, allows income distribution to be adjusted to let everyone share in the benefits of increased national productivity. Because a UBI is a direct transfer, spending is determined by the market. So people go out and spend their universal basic income any way they want, which is a market kind of operation. Social Security is an example of a universal basic income, just limited to the elderly. Can we afford to distribute the benefits of increased productivity more widely? This slide shows the distribution of national income in the US. As you can see, the top 10% here really stands out. Transferring $10,000, this little black rectangle here, from the top 10% to the bottom 10% of households would end working poverty. If all households had an equal share of national income, each household would have $144,000. So clearly, there's room for income transfers to reduce income inequality. As you can see, nobody below $144,000 in terms of income would have to be taxed more than, in fact, they would gain under an equal distribution. So we can draw this line into which way we want to reduce income inequality, and it would only affect people at the very high end of things. The moral and practical case for UBI, for universal basic income. Nobody working full-time should be poor. The American dream is basically about opportunity, economic, but not only economic. Poverty demonstrably gives both children and adults lower opportunity in all areas. Great inequalities of income and wealth are bad for a democracy and social cohesion. It is unfair that some children have vastly more opportunity at birth than others. I mean, many children are born to homeless parents. That is terrible for their opportunity in life. A UBI of the magnitude described would still leave enormous differences in wealth and income. A UBI would greatly stimulate the economy, and productivity increases will continue to drive inequality. A UBI works. There have been a number of universal basic income trials providing a small guaranteed payment, such as $500 per month. The results have been highly positive. UBI leads paradoxically to increased employment, higher rates of business formation, and large improvements in life satisfaction. To quote a Washington Post article, the pilot programs have created scores of stories about how a small amount of money led to massive changes in a recipient's life. And a growing body of research based on the experiments shows that guaranteed income works, that it pulls people out of poverty, improves health outcomes, and makes it easier for people to find jobs and take care of their children. If empirical evidence ruled the world, guaranteed income would be available to every poor person in America, and many of those people would no longer be poor. Why is a UBI better than other income transfers? Everyone would get the same UBI regardless of income, so it's fair and very easy to administer. No large bureaucracy required. U.S. lower income households often rely now on demeaning means tested income transfer programs to make ends meet. The need for such programs would be greatly reduced. A UBI of $1,000 per month per adult would end working poverty for the first time ever, but it would not be so large as to discourage work. Some prominent conservative economists, such as Milton Friedman and Gregory Mankiw, favor a UBI because it doesn't distort markets and is simple to administer. They recognize that productivity gains cause income losses. Alternatives to a UBI. A living minimum wage is a necessary complement to the UBI. Guaranteed minimum income is like a UBI but means tested. I much prefer a UBI because everybody gets exactly the same universal basic income, but by balancing taxes and the guaranteed income, you can achieve the same result as a guaranteed minimum income without a large bureaucracy. Increase the earned income credit and child tax credit. Kludgy and not universal. Like other income support, subsidizes low productivity jobs. Free higher ed, universal health care, these are complements to the universal basic income. They spread productivity gains out. Encourage unionization, good but not universal. And a jobs guarantee program. The problem with that is it's non-market and can be inflationary. How to finance a UBI. See the video on U.S. spending and taxes. You can increase the top marginal income tax rate. Under Reagan, it went from over 70% down to 30% and was applied to income over $30,000. So it basically increased the burden on the middle class. Increase the inheritance tax on estates over a few $1,000,000. It's unfair that some kids are born never having to work and others are born homeless. Tax all income, such as dividends and capital gains, the same way as wages. Currently, unearned income is taxed at a lower rate. Get rid of tax breaks that allow many rich people to pay little or no taxes. For example, Trump paid $750 in income taxes in 2016 and 2017, and has many times in his life not paid any income taxes at all. Remove the cap on Social Security taxes. We can also implement a national sales tax like most countries have that promotes savings. Another thought experiment. Agriculture has gone from employing 80% of the population in the 1800s to less than 1% now. That is due to productivity growth. Manufacturing has gone from over 30% to under 10% because of productivity growth. Most Americans now work in services. Imagine a world where machines, automation, and AI produce everything without human labor. Do you see the need to find a mechanism for distributing income in such a world? Simply put, productivity can reduce or eliminate the need for labor, and in the market, demand determines pay. For the first time in history, there's enough to go around in the US so that nobody needs to live in poverty. Market capitalism is great at driving productivity increases, but lousy at income and wealth distribution. We can have both, but only through redistribution. Redistribution of income does not negatively impact market capitalism. In fact, the New Deal showed it greatly spurs business growth. Productivity increases drive income inequality. That is unlikely to change. In fact, it is likely to get worse. A modest UBI would leave plenty of income and wealth inequality while spurring growth. Rich people would still be rich as they were pre-Reagan. A UBI for citizens would give us all a stake in the United States, like stockholders. Let's call it the American productivity dividend. We'd all be working to make the country richer and share in that wealth. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, here's another you might like. Click the globe above to subscribe and learn about new videos. See oneworldeconomics.com to download these slide presentations with all the notes, as well as in-depth coverage of these topics and my background.